A lot of you may be thinking, there's something different about him today. He looks different today. I am a grandpa. As of Thursday, and yes, I did shave. So I figured that, this all had to come off so I could get him up closer and snuggle. So
Did you start smoking a pipe?
I started smoking a pipe. And so anyway, I know it's a big deal for all of you for me to be a grandfather. So you can sleep good tonight. So.
How much did he weigh?
7 pounds, 7 ounces, 20.5 inches. Boy. Oh, I thought we all knew that. He was a boy.
His name is?
I don't know that part. I'm not sure that they know that yet. So I think they've decided on Caden. Caden, K-A-D-Y-N, I think is how they're going to do that. But I don't know that they've decided anything yet. So anyway, this morning's message, You Are the Gift, kind of came from the idea that this baby would be here by now. Because we put out the messages, the titles, a couple months in advance, actually. And so we were kind of thinking about that, and I thought, when we talk about babies, we talk about this gift, this little gift that we have. And we discussed that, and we were actually talking about doing a different song, and then I came up with this one, and I thought, oh, that fits just really well. So, you are the gift. And so I was thinking, what do I want my grandson to know? What do I want to tell him? I'm going over there tomorrow. What am I going to talk to him about? Whoa. You are the gift. You are the gift. And so I wanted to use that word gift as an acronym today. And we'll use the 4 letters there. And so you are the gift. G, what I plan to tell him is, you are glorious. You are glorious. And glorious means exhibiting attributes or qualities that are worthy of glory, noble, praiseworthy, excellent, illustrious, splendid, bright, and shining. You are glorious. Not what you do, not the things that happen out here that you do. You are glorious. Your very life is glorious. Your very life is illustrious. And why is that? Because your life is what God is. Your life is an expression of this infinite intelligence. That's me, when I been down there. Quit doing that. Your life is this expression of this infinite intelligence that invades and pervades all of the universe. That's what your life is. It is that expression. It can't be anything but glorious. When we talk up here, when I talk about and we recite and we do this, we've been doing this for almost a year now. I am a magnificent expression of spirit, born to shimmer and shine and radiate. The fact is, you can't be anything else. That's all that you can be, is a magnificent expression of spirit. There's nothing else to be. Can you imagine something that isn't of spirit, of God, that isn't magnificent? God is magnificence. God is perfect intelligence. God is beauty and joy and all of these things. And therefore we are. We have to be, because we are that perfect expression. So you are glorious. You are glorious. G-I. You are indispensable. Do you feel that? You feel that you are indispensable? I started looking this up and I was studying this, and almost everything I got from this was, go on the internet and stuff. from traditional Christian background, which says, God is indispensable, but you're not. And I thought, I don't really like that idea because it doesn't make sense to me. It's not that I don't like it. It's not that it's like, oh, I rebel against that. It's that it doesn't make any sense. If God is indispensable, and I am an expression of God, and I am made in the image and likeness of God, then I must be indispensable as well. You see, God couldn't be all of what God is without me and without you. You are an indispensable part of this life, part of this unity, part of this wholeness. To be indispensable means to be essential, to be absolutely necessary, to be vital. Joel Goldsmith, this is a book, Realization of Oneness. He says here, the truth about you is that you, in your true identity, are the child of God. God has expressed itself on earth individually as you. Well, first of all, isn't that cool? God has expressed itself individually here as you. The life which is God is your individual life, and it is eternal and immortal. Your mind is actually that same mind which was in Christ Jesus, infinitely wise, infinitely pure. Your soul is spotless, and there is not anything that you could do that would change that, because God is your soul. God is your soul. Your soul is spotless. There's nothing you can do to change that. There's nothing you can do to change God. God is your very being, and even your body is the temple of the living God. This is the truth about you and your life, your mind, your soul, your body, your being. You are indispensable. Each and every one of us. And when we're talking about all of these things, being glorious and being indispensable, we have to recognize that that applies to every single person out there. Everywhere. Not just here, not just in this room, everywhere. That means in the East. That means in the Arab countries. That means in Korea. That means everywhere. We are all children of God. We are all expressions of Spirit. Joel Goldsmith goes on here a little later in this same book. You may believe that as long as you go your own sweet way, bothering no one, you are living your own life, and that nobody else is affected by it. You may think that you are unimportant, that you are unknown, or that you have no influence. That is the most disastrous state of thought that you can possibly entertain. There is no one who is really unimportant, nor is there anyone who can live solely and exclusively unto himself, even if he seems to be doing so. What is taking place in our consciousness is an influence, and therefore, if we are studying these principles for no other reason than to find out the secret of life, eventually they will do something to our life, and eventually, through us, to someone else's life. We have no way of knowing how widespread that may be in time. You know, so many times, if you think about it, there's little things that have happened in our life, little things that really, at the time, may have seemed insignificant, but we can remember them. And looking back now, it's like, oh, that was a really important thing. My mother tells a story. when she was 14 years old. And she was sitting in, I think she was working in a drugstore at the time, working at a counter, serving soft drinks and stuff at the drugstore. And she tells the story about this man telling her, basically, that you can do anything you want with your life. Well, she was 14 years old. She remembers that story today. And she remembers how that one little phrase from this man she didn't even know affected her entire life. He has no idea what he did. He has no clue how that affected her. How that still today, however many years later, 60 years later, she remembers that and what it meant to her. We don't know how we affect other people, but our consciousness affects all of society. There are unimportant people in this world, he says, and they are all the people who believe they are unimportant. And that is what is keeping them unimportant. The truth is that you and I are important, and we are not only important to one another, but we are important to the entire world. We cannot fail to be a blessing to others if our attention is on seeking and searching out the secrets of life. The fact is, we cannot help but be a blessing to others if we live our own lives from a place of peace and joy. I am sacred love. I am blessed peace. I am deepest joy. If we live from that place, we're helping the entire world. We're being a benefit and a blessing to everyone, everywhere. G-I-F. Glorious, indispensable, and F, you are flawless. You are flawless. Ooh, that's a tough one, isn't it? Sometimes that's really hard. Flawless, I'm flawless. Well, once again, I go back to the same thing. How can you be anything but? You tell me how you can be anything but flawless. You are the perfect expression of God. If you're saying that you are flawed somehow, then all you're saying is that God is flawed somehow. And this idea of God, or this concept of God, this principle of God that we speak of here, is one of perfection. There's no place for flaw. There's no place for anything other than perfect, anything other than perfection. There's nothing for us to be but flawless. Now, that does not mean in our humanity and our thinking that we don't get off track sometimes, that we don't move into areas that maybe we don't belong in. But our inner essence, who we are, is flawless. Flawless, without any blemishes or imperfections. Perfect. Ernest Holmes says, we are so one with the whole that whatever is true of it is true of us. All that means is just what I've been saying here. What is true of God, the whole. Did you get that? Is true of us. So anything that we attribute to God, joy and peace and intelligence and wisdom, is us, is what we are. Ernest Holmes goes on to say, God is not sick. Can you imagine God being sick? God is not poor. God is not unhappy. God is never afraid. What would this thing we call God have to be afraid of? If it is all and only, if it is the only thing that is, then what is there for it to be afraid of? There's nothing to be against it. God is never confused. God is never out of his place. The premise upon which all mental work is based is perfect God, perfect man, perfect being. You are flawless. We live in a world where the Bible talks about in the Garden of Eden and eating of this apple or this fruit, what? Of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And that's really just a story that talks about our evolution to coming to a place of consciousness. And our whole problem, everything that happens in life, our problem is that we see two things. We see God and me. There is no God and me. There's just God. That's all there is. It's God is me. God as me. God expresses as you. Perfect, flawless, glorious, indispensable, and flawless. And fourth and final, T, G-I-F-T, you are timeless. You are timeless. Timeless means having no end. Interminable, unending, unaffected, or unchanged by time. Ageless, eternal. You see, God, Spirit, this thing we call life, this intelligence, cannot die. It doesn't born and it doesn't die. It just always is. It is forever. It is always. And it is what we are. We are the expression of it. We are timeless. We are eternal. We are immortal. When we rush around here because we have to get everything done, what are we saying? We're saying there's not enough time. We talked about this Wednesday night. We talked about time and getting into these rushes and all of that. Well, there's nothing to be in a hurry about. You've got eternity. Time is totally relative. Ernest Holmes says, we are born of eternal day, and the spiritual sun shall never set on the glory of the soul. For it is the coming forth of God into expression. I'm going to read that again. We are born of eternal day, and the spiritual sun shall never set on the glory of the soul. The sun shall never set on the glory of the soul. Why? For it, the soul, is the coming forth of God into expression. And if this thing we call God, the Spirit, is eternal, is infinite, if it is infinite, then there's no end to it. It will express forever in new and different ways. And it expresses through us forever. It expresses through us ongoing. Man is an eternal destiny. And notice that he didn't say man has an eternal destiny. He said man is an eternal destiny. And for a forever expanding principle of conscious intelligence. Forever expanding principle. Timeless. Now this is Ernest Holmes. People have a real problem with this sometimes. But he says, man, the real man, is birthless, deathless, changeless, and God as man in man is man. Birthless, deathless, changeless. That's you. You are glorious. You are absolutely indispensable. You are flawless in your being. And you are timeless. And these are the things, 4 things, that I want my grandson to know. I want him to understand this, not only about himself, but I want him to understand this about everyone out there. And when I look at you, or when he looks at someone else, what he sees is a grand and glorious, indispensable, flawless, timeless expression of God. And what would happen if we all only saw that? Do you suppose there might be peace in the world? Do you suppose there might be some changes, some things different, if that's all we saw? But it starts with seeing it in ourselves. That's what you are. You can't be anything else.